Hello dudes and dudettes, welcome back to another YouTube video. So this is a video request from one of my good friends and colleagues, Kai, that we work with on a freelance basis. And what Kai wants to know is a example from a recent sales scenario. What Kai is basically asking is how we came up with a price on the spot when I was on this sales conversation, the delivery and how do you state and deliver your price with confidence when you're on a call. How do we quickly map out bigger productions? So quickly understanding what team is going to be required and how much we're going to have to charge in order to make money and that sort of stuff as well. And then how we negotiate and come to a final price with confidence as well. Let me just give you the context for this conversation. So basically, Kai had a request come through and he was already booked for that week, so he couldn't take on the project, so he gave it to us. He had a conversation with the client in the past as well, and basically just thought that we would be a better production company to take on that job purely just because the client was asking for an extensive list of deliverables. So it was a 5-day event. They basically wanted 10 social media reels per day. They wanted 10,000 right? 10,000 images, like final images. Quick side note is we worked that out to be 4 photos a minute on an 8-hour day over the 5 days, which is ridiculous anyway. So 10,000 photos. They wanted like a final wrap up kind of highlight promotional landscape video out of the back of it as well. And they wanted all of the raw footage and all of the raw images as well. It was meant to be happening today, actually, the day that I'm recording this video. So obviously you can see that we didn't get the job, but that was more of a budget thing than a sales thing. So what I want to do is basically kind of just break down those things, right? Price on the spot, delivering that price, mapping bigger productions, and then negotiating with confidence as well. So let's dive into it. Price on the spot. Basically, the way that I go about pricing that when we need to come up with a price really quickly, because one thing that I forgot to add into this context is the fact that the shoot was happening in like 2 weeks, right? So we needed to kind of get things in place pretty quick, which meant that our typical sales process just wasn't appropriate because we needed to dial that in as quick as we could, basically. So price on the spot. Basically what I did, I took the deliverable list straight from the client's mouth, and then you figure out the team that is going to be required, the day rates that you know certain people operate on, and then the day rates that you have internally kind of within your production company as well. And then you just times that by the output, which in this case was 5 days, right? A few days on the back end for editing, and then a few days on the front end for planning and pre-production as well. I think what this ultimately comes down to is experience. So I've been doing it for a long time. I kind of understand and have a pretty good handle on the team that is required to produce that level of work, right? Ideally, what we're doing is we are giving ourselves a bit of a negotiating buffer within the price that we then pitch to the client, because like no matter how much you want to get away from it, there's going to be, you give a price, then they say a lower price, then you end up somewhere in the middle. That is what happens like 99% of the time. So you need to give yourself like and go in a bit higher in order to understand kind of how you're going to be negotiating down, essentially. So yeah, basically, if you're curious to know, the quote that we came up with for this 5-day production with all of those deliverables was 16.25k. That was split over 2 camera operators, 1 photographer, and an on-site editor. And then, like I said, a couple of days on the back end for edits, and then a couple of days on the front end for pre-production as well. So when it comes to actually delivering that price, it's not, like I said, it's not the typical sales scenario. So we would want to take them through like objectives and pain points and all that sort of stuff. Like that would be a typical kind of sales conversation, and really basing this on value. But because of the fact that this needed to be turned around so quick, I was just very eager to essentially just give them a ballpark estimate or estimate price, and then see kind of how that worked for them, right? But ultimately, it's experience in terms of kind of just knowing how to deliver that price. And the way that I've always gone about it is just say the number, right? Just say it. Like, what else are you going to do? Like, you'd have to tell them how much you're going to charge for that thing. But the point is that you say it and then you just shut up. You let them react. And I think ultimately the reason why I am now so comfortable doing this is because I've had, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sales calls. And I've got the confidence to deal with what comes next, which is essentially objection handling, right? So if they say they want to think about it, if they say they need to speak to their business partner, if they say that it's the investment is too much, if they have fear or uncertainty or whatever that might be, whatever comes out or whatever reaction they give, I have the capacity and ability to essentially be able to handle that, right? So when it comes to mapping out bigger productions, ultimately I think, again, this, I keep saying this a lot, but it's the experience, right? It's the experience of kind of what's needed and who is needed. I have worked on multi-day events before where I've literally worked myself to the bone, and it's just not worth it, right? Like, that, if you're doing like a 5-day shoot where you're super stressed the entire time whilst also trying to produce the best work that you possibly can, for one, the work suffers, so the clients don't get the best experience, and for two, like, that can take like a good week to recover from if you're really doing this. Like, feasibly, like, I could be the one that's filming, I could be the one that's editing, I could be staying up, driving home, going back, blah 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 blah, like all of this sort of stuff, and for me, it's just not worth it anymore. We're in a position now where like, if jobs don't come through, it doesn't concern me that much. Obviously, like, you always want to win the work, right? Like, that's a kind of a given. But if things don't happen, and if people are really trying to kind of crush you on your price, and it means that you would have to work like, like a crazy person for 5 days, like, it's just not worth it for me. Let somebody else do it. It's just, yeah, it's just not kind of in my wheelhouse to do that anymore. So really what it is about kind of planning more people than you actually need, and giving yourself buffer. Again, it kind of comes back to that negotiating buffer. But yeah, just giving yourself, like, just more people than you need, more skills than you need, more time than you need, because then when you say that final price to your client, like, again, you have that negotiating buffer, but also, like, if it does come down to the fact that you actually do need those people, right, in a situation where you didn't plan things properly and you do need the extra support that you've luckily already planned in, that's not coming out of your pocket, or you're not going back to the client to say, like, hey, we need more money, because that's, like, the most unprofessional thing, in my opinion, is to say, like, your quote is your quote, right? Like, ultimately, you can't go back to the client and say, like, hey, we need more. Obviously, if they come to you and say, can you do more, that's a different conversation. But for the same, for the same deliverables, yeah, you can't, I don't know, I would hate to go to a client and say, hey, I messed up when I was pricing this job and I'm going to need more money, or we can't carry on. Like, that's just, I don't know, that's ridiculous for me. And if somebody did that for me, I'd feel exactly the same. But the point being is that you have that buffer, you have that money to play with. And yeah, if you need to, then it's not directly coming out of your profit, right? Which is the main point here. And finally, we're going to talk about negotiating with confidence. And the first thing to really discuss when it comes to any kind of negotiation is you have to understand the leverage that you personally have, right? Now, given this specific scenario, they needed somebody quick. They needed a team that could come in and do all of this within like 2 weeks. They needed fast turnarounds. They needed experience, right? All of these things. So really, from my side, the only leverage that they had on me was that I had the dates free and I would take the work if it was there. But like, from their side, they didn't really have any leverage. Like, we kind of had all the leverage there, which means that I can be confident in my price. I don't need to kind of be, how would you say, accommodating to their budgets. At the end of the day, if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And essentially, if somebody wants things super quick, they end up paying more. Like, it's the classic scenario, like, say I'm ordering a birthday gift for my missus, right? And I've left it too late, so now I need to pay like 10% more on the gift because I need fast delivery, right? It's about leverage, and everything, every price and every negotiation is really about leverage. One thing I want to say about negotiating is, like, don't become too attached to the opportunity, right? It can feel like as soon as somebody says that they want you to come in and do something, that's like you've actually got that job. Well, I don't consider a job ours until it's actually signed on the dotted line. I've become very good at emotionally detaching from things that people say and opportunities that may or may not come about. And the reason why I've done that is because I've been burned in the past by essentially getting emotionally attached to opportunities without them actually being concrete, right? I know that even if somebody signs on the dotted line, if they decide not to go ahead, then they're charged 20% of that project. So regardless of that, we're getting some kind of revenue in from it, right? Whereas before, I just don't count it as anything, really, until it's signed, right? There will always be another opportunity. They're, you know, like, and I think this comes back to having confidence in your appointment booking and sales systems as well. If you know your metrics and you know your data, Kai, I'm speaking directly to you now, mate. Like, if you know your metrics and you know your data, then you know that on average you book X amount of calls per month. On average, 30% or 40% of those people close, which means that over the next kind of 3 to 6 weeks, you're expecting X amount of revenue, X amount of profit, etc., etc., etc. Right? If you have the confidence in your systems, in your processes, in your metrics as a business, then you don't need to get emotionally attached to opportunities, because you know that there is always another one coming up. You know that you've got a calendar full of calls. You know that you've got a pipeline full of deals, right? Like, you can say no to opportunities, and you can ultimately set a bar for your prices, because you know that there's something always around the corner, right? And the point is, not every single client is going to be a good fit. Not every single client is going to be the one for you, and that's okay. You know, if it's not the right time, it's not the right time. Like I said, this shoot was meant to be today, and it hasn't transpired, so it's okay. Like, they weren't the right fit for us, and we weren't the right fit for them, because they wanted it a hell of a lot cheaper than what we could do it for. I hope they found somebody. I hope that they're going to cover the event well. I know that we probably could cover it better, but that's all right. And not every single client needs to go ahead with you, and you don't need to jump or get emotionally attached to every single opportunity that comes through. So that's everything that I've got to say on this. Hopefully that makes sense to those watching, and then to Kai as well. Let me know if there's any follow-up questions, mate. I'm more than happy to make another video on this, but I will sign off now. Check out all the rest of the videos on the channel if you want to, and I will catch you very, very, very soon. Take care.